Hello and welcome back to Weston the Historian. Today we're going to be doing another video where I'm just winging it, no script or anything. I just thought I had this idea in class the other day because in English class we were reading through The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And I've always thought that was such an interesting story. But just recently I don't know how it took me so long, but I made the connection between Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and Carl Jung's concept of the shadow. So, essentially, we have to understand, what exactly is the shadow? And, of course, I must admit, I have not read Carl Jung. I need to do that at some point. But from my understanding, from what I've gathered of what the shadow is, it is basically the subconscious parts of our personality, which we do not really want to be a part of our personality because we just deem them as unacceptable for whatever reason that is, whether society deems it unacceptable, so it adopts into our conscious and we decide, yeah, we don't want that to be a part of who we are. But no matter what you do, it is a part of who you are, and you need to understand that. And instead of fleeing from that, what you need to do is you need to grapple with it, and you need to bring the shadow to you, and you have to understand what your shadow is, and you have to integrate it into your personality. For example, actually I can't think of an example, so I'm not going to give one, but I am going to trace this to Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So Dr. Jekyll, he's this really respectable, polite man, but he talks about how he always had this primitive, evil even side of his nature. And he needed to find a way to let that out. So he developed this little mixture, this concoction that basically turned him into a different person. And it brought out his shadow, all of his primitive parts, the parts of his personality which he thought were unacceptable. So instead of doing what he should do, which is, integrating his shadow into his personality, he instead just kind of let the shadow take over and become Mr. Hyde. So Dr. Jekyll uses this little concoction to turn into Mr. Hyde. And he kind of, at first he has control over it, if he takes the mixture, then yeah, he'll turn into Mr. Hyde, but then sometimes he'll start waking up and he's already Mr. Hyde. He'll go to sleep as Dr. Jekyll, wake up as Mr. Hyde, and this kind of goes into Jung talking about this being a subconscious part of you. It's like this subconscious part of your personality which bursts through and makes itself known, becomes a part of your conscious, dominates your conscience. Because as Jung believed, if you bury down your shadow, it will eventually burst through and it will take over. It will become more and more violence, I guess you could say. So this story, it has a lot to do with Jung's concept of the shadow self, which is funny because this book came out well before Carl Jung's time, but it is very interesting because you see those parallels. Dr. Jekyll is essentially this man who's, as a result of bearing down his shadow, it eventually bursts through as Mr. Hyde. And for the start of it, he has control over his shadow. He has control over Mr. Hyde. But as time goes on, Mr. Hyde just takes over to the point where he'll wake up as Mr. Hyde, and Mr. Hyde becomes like his natural state. The shadow has taken over. So, that is all I have to say. But, I need a microphone. We're going to figure that out one day. But, if you enjoyed this video, please, share with a friend or something. I don't know. Also, subscribe, blah, 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 all that jazz. That's all I have to say. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.